I am a complete villain. For example, I've had my parents done up to resemble the true daughter, and after the real daughter's car accident, I took her place, snatched her family, fell in love with her fiancé, and even bullied her younger sister. In the end, the real daughter stood before me, almost driven mad, condemning me, but no one believed her. I stepped on her hand and smiled lightly. Are you angry? I can do worse. When Riva's parents found me, Riva was in the operating room fighting for her life. I held her back and watched her parents remain calm. Her mother, excited and scared, pulled me into an embrace. Riva, didn't you say you were in an accident? Did you get hurt? I pouted and showed her the bruise on my knee. It was just a minor bump. I got some compensation, but I'm fine. Her father looked at me with suspicion. Then why are you at the hospital? Well, of course, I was here to see Riva's near-death state. I smiled and said, just checking on the child. But don't worry, there's no impact. As I spoke, I shyly touched my stomach. Her father, looking anxious, said, yes, the child must be fine. You still need to rely on this child to marry Noel. Noel is Riva's fiancé, a genuine wealthy heir, a man who regularly graces the covers of financial magazines. Marrying him would be a great boost for the Gunter family. Riva, who was pregnant before marriage, wanted to use the child to secure her future. I smirked. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I pretended to casually toss my hair, revealing a small mole on my right earlobe, the same as Riva's. Riva's face was disfigured in the accident. I personally delivered her to the emergency room, so I wasn't worried about being exposed from head to toe. I was made to look just like Riva. No one could tell I was an imposter. They warmly took me back to the Gunter house. I must say, although the Gunter family isn't top-tier wealthy, they are quite rich. Luxury cars, villas, servants, and prestige. As soon as I walked in, Riva's younger sister rushed up to me. Sister, are you okay? You don't know how scared I was when I heard about your accident. Riva's younger sister, Emily, is quite the sis-con. The bond between the two sisters is genuinely close and heartfelt. I knew this from high school. I smiled gently. Don't worry, I'm back, aren't I? Emily bounced up and down, pulling me along. Sister, I had something to tell you that will make you happy. Do you remember that girl you didn't like in high school? Her father jumped off a building 3 months ago. I heard she hasn't shown up in front of relatives and friends for a long time. She came from a single-parent family and ended up not going to college. Such a person is destined to rot in the gutter. It's hilarious. Oh, which girl? I raised my eyebrows, looking intrigued. Emily was anxious. The one named Erin. Don't you remember? Sister. Emily looked at me with a hint of grievance. I even spread rumors about her father using drugs for you. And now, you're asking me which girl? Of course, I remember because that was my father. 3 months ago, he was forced by a group of thugs into drug addiction and hallucinated on the rooftop. Those thugs had been paid by the Gunter family $800,000. It was enough to buy a construction worker's life. Emily, pretending to be sad, rubbed against me, her eyes filled with pride, waiting for me to praise her. I laughed, touching her head. My sweet sister, you did a great job. I love you so much. Keep up the good work next time. Emily was thrilled by my praise. This good sister of Riva is truly a good dog. When I first met Emily, she was in 8th grade, wearing a white dress with long, silky black hair, looking pure and gentle. She came to the door of my classroom, pinching her dress, and called out to me, "Excuse me, beautiful sister, I want to ask you a question." How polite she was. So polite that after I replied, she smiled, broke my fingers, and then had someone trap me in the bathroom after school. The water in the bathroom tasted terrible. The question she wanted to ask was, "How dare you, a person with divorced parents and a father in debt, challenge my sister? Can you teach me how to have that kind of courage?" She smiled innocently, protecting her sister. At the time I was in my senior year of high school, Emily, still in 8th grade, had already become so wicked, mingling with all kinds of people and helping Riva bully me. And what Riva considered provoking her was laughable. The bullying started simply because I took her position as class monitor. She was a little princess in the sky, overlooking everyone and deciding others' fates. Just because of her words, I had no peace. She lightly broke my fingers with a laugh and even patted my head. "Without fingers, you won't be able to do your homework. I wonder if the teacher will let a cripple be class monitor." She smiled so beautifully. But the teacher, heartbroken, took me in his arms and sent me to the hospital. Later, that teacher was dragged into the boys' bathroom by some thugs on a lonely night and never returned to teach again. Riva merely said without any disguise, "Those who provoke me deserve this kind of end." At that time, my body was shaking. I begged her to spare me, but she just smiled and poured a cup of boiling water over me. In the scorching summer heat of 30 degrees, the hot water made my clothes and skin stick together. burning intensely. I was disfigured. She enjoyed everyone's adoration and envy. I was left to suffer like a worm in the gutter. Who told her to become class monitor? She didn't see her own level. If I were her, I wouldn't have accepted the monitor position when a teacher appointed it. Class monitor should be someone like Riva, a princess. Look at her, so ugly. Ha ha ha. So, am I meant to be treated this way? I refused to accept it, but because of my outstanding grades, I foolishly hoped to change my fate through the college entrance exam. What I got was Riva kidnapping me abroad and making me undergo plastic surgery to look like her. She said, "Your utility value is only so much. Replace me in the entrance exam, and I'll give you $1 million. You'll never spend it all in your lifetime." She also said, "After the exam, destroy your face. I'll get it redone as something else. Don't flaunt my face." She dared to be so arrogant simply because my father was a construction worker. Worlds apart from her status, it was my honor to pave the way for her. And my mother, paralyzed and in intensive care, required hundreds of thousands each month. I agreed. My compliance relieved her. She said, "I really can't understand how someone can give up their face for money. If you had resisted, I might have respected you a bit more." Yes, I didn't dare to resist at all. If Riva hadn't been so overbearing, using my parents to control me and mistreating them, I probably wouldn't have ever resisted. She removed my mother's oxygen tank the day before the entrance exam. Why, Riva? I can't understand. Is this how wealthy people are? Doing whatever they want, treating lives like dirt, because we're powerless, because we lack immense wealth and power, because our lives are insignificant, and it's our honor to be obstacles for you. As my thoughts returned, I looked at Emily, smiling gently. Emily, however, frowned at me. After a long pause without any movement, she stared at my eyes, and suddenly said, "You're not my sister. Discovered so soon." I tensed inside, but maintained a calm exterior. "My dear sister, what are you talking about?" Emily angrily grabbed my arm. My sister hated Aaron the most. When I told her about Aaron's misfortune before, she was always very happy. "Even though you praised me just now, I don't think you're genuinely happy," she analyzed. "I remember my sister told me she took Aaron abroad unexpectedly. Aaron ran away after the surgery. You must be Aaron, right? So where did my sister go?" "So smart," I sighed. I didn't refute her. Emily's eyes widened. "Why are you speaking? Did I guess right?" I crossed my arms and lifted my chin. Yes, with this appearance, what else could Emily not understand? She screamed, "No wonder my sister said you're a bitch. Where is my sister now? Why are you here? I'm going to tell Mom and Dad they've been deceived by you and brought you back." I raised an eyebrow indifferently. "Are you sure you want to say that?" "What do you mean?" I looked at her and smiled lightly. Within seconds, she understood my meaning and her face turned ashen. Her parents had no idea about me being kidnapped abroad and having plastic surgery by Riva. If Emily told them, it would be like exposing oneself. I had planned to keep Emily in the dark with such a close sisterly bond. There were too many details I couldn't be sure of. It was too exhausting. Better to threaten her instead. I sneered and leaned closer to her. "Instead of thinking about how to tell your parents, why not think about how to keep it from them? I'm not afraid of being exposed, but you might not be so lucky." She clenched her fists. "Aaron, you're such a bitch." She tried to say more, but her mothers had popped in to call us for dinner. Emily glared at me. "Don't be too arrogant. I won't let you have an easy time." I ignored her and sweetly replied to her mother, then left the room. Her mother had a full meal prepared for me and comforted me. "The driver who caused the accident has been arrested. How dare he harm my grandchild's courting death?" I paused, expressionless, and continued drinking my porridge. This driver is really pitiful. This isn't the first time Riva has been out on the road, taking out her frustration on whoever she dislikes, injuring or killing people, and just paying off the damages. This time, she got unlucky and ended up in the emergency room. Given Riva's numerous offenses, her parents still turn a blind eye and cover for her. Her father said, "You better be careful. Nothing can happen to the baby." Her father and mother place great importance on this child. I smiled and said, "Don't worry, if something happens to me, the baby will be fine." To be honest, I'm still a bit anxious because I've never met Noel. Where am I supposed to get a child for Noel? I need to come up with a plan, either find a way to meet Noel and drug him, or just steal someone. Just as I was thinking about this, I heard the sound of a car engine shutting off in the courtyard. Emily was thrilled. It must be my brother-in-law. As soon as he heard that my sister is pregnant, he probably came to visit her with joy. She said this, but her gaze towards me was clearly malicious. "Indeed, I'm not pregnant, and it's bound to be easy to slip up when interacting with Noel." I frowned slightly. The butler brought Noel inside. Noel looked just as handsome as on TV, dressed in a sharp suit, tall and slim, with an aura of cool sophistication and elegance. As soon as he entered, he looked straight at me, his voice gentle but with an undertone of impatience. "I heard you're pregnant. Is it mine?" Emily took pleasure in the situation. "Brother-in-law, what do you mean? If the child isn't yours, then whose could it be?" "Something's not right." I frowned. Noelle's reaction shouldn't be like this unless Noelle and Riva aren't actually involved. If that's the case, I can't let Noelle continue. If Gunter's family finds out, everything will be ruined. With this in mind, I stood up decisively, walked up to Noelle, and pulled him outside. Noelle frowned. "Riva, what's this all about?" I smiled sweetly and wrapped my arms around his neck. "Noelle, why are you being so harsh?" "So, that's why the Gunter family places such importance on the child I'm supposedly carrying." I lowered my gaze and said, "I'm sorry, Noelle. I've suffered a lot at the Gunter family's hands and had to lie. I didn't mean to drag you into this. I just wanted to make things a little easier for myself. If you don't like it, I'll fake a miscarriage tomorrow." I stared at him for a long time, until Noelle finally gave in. He sighed, his narrow eyes full of helplessness. "Don't do this next time. If anyone bullies you, just tell me." I wrapped my arms around Noelle's waist, obedient and clingy. "Got it, Noelle." Noelle avoided me, but couldn't resist my affection. I took the opportunity to kiss him, skillfully unfastening his belt. "Noelle, I've told this lie, so help me out with it. After all, we're going to get married eventually." I'm good at reading people, even though Noelle seems clean with Riva behind closed doors. Just from our conversation, I could sense that his eyes weren't entirely innocent. Riva is a fool. I am not. I'll use this affection to climb higher. Noelle let out a groan and accepted me. He was aroused. Of course, Noelle still had doubts. He said, "You never used to be this proactive." I confidently replied, "I've had a change of heart. Isn't it normal to be eager?" He believed me. While he kissed me, I bit his ear deliberately. This was intentional, to make him remember me. No matter if that disfigured woman comes back later, he will always remember the feeling of being with me. I want to be a permanent thorn in their side. The Gunter family situation is even worse than Noelle described. In the past 2 years, their company's financial chain has broken, and internal corruption is severe. Not only is it much worse than before, it's actually on the brink of collapse. It might even be ousted from the high society. So Noelle is like the last straw for the Gunter family. After that night, Noelle has clearly been nicer to me. His parents are very pleased. Emily saw the hickeys on my neck and was furious. "Aaron, how shameless can you be? Brother-in-law is my sister's fiancé. How dare you do this? My sister won't let you off. If you're smart, you better stay away from brother-in-law." I flirtatiously adjusted the lace on my dress. "Wasn't it you who personally sent me to your brother-in-law's bed?" If it weren't for Emily texting Noelle that night, he wouldn't have found out so quickly about Riva's pregnancy. Moreover, I laughed lightly. "You should worry more about whose child your sister is carrying." Yesterday, Noelle said, "He hasn't touched your sister." Emily was provoked. Bitch, bitch, bitch. It seemed like she couldn't think of any other words to describe me. I shook my head with disinterest. Thinking of it, I added another jab. "I must say, the experience with your brother-in-law is quite pleasant." That night, Emily went on a rampage, smashing many antique vases and screaming so intensely that it was unnerving. See, she's angry now. Not only that, but I also fulfill my duties towards his parents. Almost every day, I make porridge for his mother. The doctor said she's getting old and needs proper care. His mother is very Dutch but insists I shouldn't cook. She said, "You're pregnant. These things should be handled by the servants. Why do it yourself?" I pouted and said sweetly, "You're like a mother to me. How could I trust others to do it? Besides, I'm going to marry Noelle soon, and won't have much time at home after that." I saw his mother's eyes redden, and her voice choke up. She hugged me excitedly, marveling at how dutiful I am, but she was still puzzled. "But Riva, when did your cooking get so good?" "Of course it's good. After my mother became paralyzed, I took over cooking porridge for her for years. If there hadn't been an accident, I could have continued for many more years." Thinking of this made me a bit melancholic. Seeing the genuine and emotional expression on his mother's face made me feel a bit nauseous, but I still endured the discomfort. Of course, I practiced secretly to cook for my mother. Upon hearing this, his mother was once again moved. Emily was furious at my filial piety and privately mocked me. "Aaron, my parents aren't your parents. No matter how hard you try, you'll never be their daughter. Besides, my sister's hands are meant for playing the piano. Your subservience is beneath her status." Riva always had a dream of becoming a star. She had high ambitions and was arrogant, thinking highly of herself, and her parents indulged her excessively. No matter how many despicable things she did, her parents would clean up after her. People like that are hardly capable of being dutiful. That's why I need to show his parents what a proper daughter should be like. I want everyone to compare her to me subconsciously. When Riva returns, I want her to live forever in the shadow I cast over her. Of course, I can't tell Emily any of this, so I said, why don't you just let your sister come back? You don't even know where she is, do you? I saw Emily's face crack after hearing my words. She gritted her teeth and said, just you wait. I'm not waiting. I'll take that initiative. Emily is currently attending the high school I once went to. It's a prestigious school where students either come from influential families or excel academically. I was in the latter group, while the Gunter sisters were in the former. At that school, the class divide is very apparent. Those with prominent backgrounds always look down on those with average means. Riva and Emily used to bully others a lot when the Gunter family was at its peak. I expressionlessly contacted some local thugs to spread news about the Gunter family's downfall. The thugs told me that the next day, Emily was targeted. People deliberately spilled red ink on her chair, tore her papers, and drew ugly turtles on her new dress. Emily was furious but dared not say anything. The perpetrators were of a higher status and background than the Gunter family by far. When I heard this news, I couldn't help but hum a tune while with Noel. Noel held me, his white collar revealing his handsome collarbone, which was quite striking. You seem to be in a good mood today. Of course. I smiled and clung to him, biting his cool earlobe. Noel, will you always love me? Noel held my waist. If you behave. Just as I was about to do more, Emily's call interrupted us. Noel was impatient and wanted to hang up, but I stopped him. Of course, I had to take this call. How could I miss hearing Emily cry? As expected, when I answered, Emily's voice was full of tears and anger. Erin, did you do this? These bullies are tormenting me. It's quite surprising. Emily. Oh, Emily, is this the first time you've experienced being bullied? I chuckled lightly, but, with Noel beside me, couldn't be too obvious in my arrogance. Yeah. After saying this, I hung up the phone. Noel looked at me, his tone lingering, and asked with a half smile, what's wrong? I hugged him casually and said, nothing. She asked me when we're going to get the marriage certificate. If we could get the certificate before Riva wakes up, it would surely infuriate her. Noel's face turned red. We can get it anytime. He looked very handsome when he blushed. If he were Riva's fiancé and just an ordinary young man, I would really find him attractive. After returning home, Emily maliciously showed me photos of my father before he died. She raised her eyebrows slightly, with a hint of provocation. Sister, look at that. Erin's father died such a miserable death. It's a pity Erin disappeared 3 months ago. If I could find her, I could make you happy. There were many photos taken from different angles. In them, the man was surrounded by a crowd, his face pale and hollow like dead ashes. They were smashing bottles over his head. His body was covered in bruises. Some were even pressing cigarette butts into his eyes. Oh, so that's why his eyes looked odd, I said as I put the photos away. Emily looked at me eagerly. So, sister, do you feel a bit better now? I remember you said you hated Erin's voice, that it sounded like a little bitch. I heard that on the day her father jumped. People could hear her heart-wrenching screams from 500 meters away. She was deliberately trying to provoke me, and she succeeded. I straightened up and shoved the photos right into her face. Slap. Emily was stunned. When she came to, she glared at me with anger. You bitch, are you hitting me? The commotion was loud enough that her mother came in. What's going on? Emily glared at me but didn't dare say a word. Yes, she just wanted to anger me and see me uncomfortable. She didn't expect me to hit her back. Moreover, I had leverage over both her and her sister. I smirked, pulling her mother close and handing her the photos. Mom, look at what your daughter has done. She dug up photos of a decent construction worker who jumped to his death and showed them to me. Do you think she deserves a beating? Her mother looked at the photos and nodded. Yes. After my recent kindness, her mother was increasingly satisfied with me. Emily dared not say a word, looking as meek as could be, while being kind to her parents. I also maintained my relationship with Noel. I heard from the hospital staff that Riva had finally regained consciousness after a long coma. Unfortunately, her child had been lost. Seeing the news about Gunter's eldest daughter and Lucius are about to marry, she went crazy. She appeared at the Gunter's doorstep, demanding, I'm the real Gunter's eldest daughter. What's with that woman on TV? That night, she was chased away by her mother, who thought she was insane. She then went to Noel, almost hysterical. Noel, I'm Riva. That's an imposter. She went abroad and had surgery to look like me. Noel said. Ridiculous. So-called true love is nothing more than that. I leaned seductively against Noel, covering my mouth shyly. Noel, I'm scared. Noel, very affectionate, immediately threw Riva out. Riva, desolate, trembled in front of Lucius' house. I smiled and stood behind her. Noel loves me. We're getting married soon. You're just humiliating yourself by being here. Riva's eyes widened, and she screamed at me. It's you. You bitch. I'm going to kill you. She lunged at me, but I nimbly avoided her. She fell awkwardly to the ground from the force of her own momentum. I lightly laughed, pressing the tip of my high heel into her hand, grinding it in. Are you angry? I've got worse things planned. Riva's face contorted in pain, cold sweat pouring from her forehead. She began begging me to let up, saying she was in agony. I felt immense satisfaction and said, so what if you're Riva? I've taken everything from you, including the Noel you loved. He's been groveling under me day and night. Everything you had has been tainted by me, and I don't even want it. Noel is a dog. So is Riva. As Riva lay suffering under my foot, I stood tall like a queen. However, Riva, despite her pleas, looked behind me and started smiling. I followed her gaze. Noel was leaning against the wall behind me, holding a cigarette, his brow furrowed, lost in thought. It seemed he had heard everything I said. Riva, shaking with pain, still had a look of great joy on her face. Noel, do you see? This woman has been deceiving you from the start. She's been pretending to be me and even disfigured me. Noel was silent for a long time, before finally walking over and taking Riva's hand to help her up. Her hand, which I had stepped on, was already covered in blood. Noel looked at me, asking, give me an explanation. Riva stared at him in shock. Noel, even now you still want to hear Aaron's excuses. Riva, feeling guilty, said, I did have some minor procedures abroad and knew the doctors there. They called me a while ago, saying someone was using my photo for cosmetic surgery. At the time, I didn't take it seriously. Hearing her explanation, I chuckled. Riva, how dare you let Noel know you did something so morally bankrupt just for an exam? Noel, embracing her, looked at me with cold indifference. Had he not heard my words, he might have still felt some affection for me. But now, how could his pride allow him to be my toy? I shrugged and leaned against the wall. The Gunter family arrived quickly upon learning the news. Emily's first action was to slap me. You're such a bitch. Doesn't your conscience hurt doing something like this? Her face bore the satisfaction of revenge, finally getting to vent the frustration she had felt from me. Only her mother hesitated. What's your name? Why did you do this? Looking at them, I was not at all angry about being exposed. I simply licked my sore jaw where Emily had slapped me. Remember, everything you're going through, you deserve. With that, I walked away without looking back. Behind me, Riva was heartbroken, and the Gunter family comforted her, but no one dared to stop me. After all, Riva and Emily had done wrong and were too scared to confront me, while Gunter's parents had sympathy for me. Having been their daughter for so long, I had nothing to regret. As for Noel, I didn't doubt his love for me, but he had his pride. The news of Noel and Riva's engagement was quite grand. Soon after I left the Gunter family, TV constantly broadcast updates about Noel and Riva. For example, the heir of the Lucius family remains devoted to his disfigured fiancée. Their love sincere. The heir of the Lucius family takes Gunter's eldest daughter to pick out a wedding ring worth $14 million. On the screen, Noel lovingly embraced Riva, looking extremely tender. Riva provocatively said, no matter what I look like, Noel loves me the most. He loves not just my face but my soul. I believe that even if someone who looks exactly like me stood in front of him, he wouldn't be moved. Her gaze seemed to pierce through the screen at me. She was pointing at me. But what does it have to do with me? I smirked and directly made a phone call. Hello, I've made up my mind about what you asked me to consider. Riva had a dream of becoming a star. She said her fingers were meant for playing the piano. She said she should stand in the spotlight and be worshipped. So, I stood at the entrance of a talent agency. Back then, to cover my mother's high medical bills, I sang at a bar and was noticed by a talent scout. He said, you have a great voice. Are you interested in developing it with me? At that time, I was so overwhelmed by life that I had no energy to chase dreams. Besides, many said that in this industry, some people never make it. Unexpectedly, I found myself standing at this door, seeking revenge. Oh, Riva, I admit you're strong, but once your face has a place in the entertainment industry, what happens to your dreams? I plan to use your face to become famous far and wide, and you will have no voice. Blame it on the Gunter family's excessive protection of their daughter's privacy. And this face, well, you, Riva, gave it to me yourself. Unless, Riva, you dare to reveal it all and face the consequences. The talent scout who once came to find me was named Bevis. When he learned I entered the entertainment industry for revenge, he didn't care. He just gazed at me with fascination. Whatever your purpose, I'll help you grow and turn you into a perfect work of art. From the moment I saw you, I knew you shouldn't be stuck in that bar. You should be on a dazzling stage. I said, but I don't even own my own face. He replied, you're a singer, not an actress. Bevis was very responsible with me, because I was extremely honest with him. I was also invulnerable. With my clean image and strong professional skills, I quickly made a name for myself in the entertainment industry. Riva, who was beautiful, relied on her face to attract many fans. In just 3 months, I emerged as a rising star, making a significant impact. While I was thriving, Riva clearly wasn't faring well. After my concert, I put on a beautiful cloak and went backstage, where I encountered Noel. We locked eyes. He pushed me into the makeup room, holding my wrist, and a tingling sensation quickly spread up my spine. Noel was very close, and I could feel his hot breath. He lowered his head and brushed his hand against my lips, his beautiful fingers slipping in. The move was so intimate, but his tone was furious. "You haven't come to see me in 3 months. What kind of heart do you have?" I didn't resist, only looking at him with a sultry gaze. "What, Noel? Are you still thinking about your old flame? Aren't you in love with Riva's passionate soul anymore?" He ignored my sarcasm and said, "Riva hasn't been doing well these past few months. Uncle and Aunt always compare her to you, saying you used to make them porridge, that you weren't unreasonable or troublemaking, that you were very good." I had expected this. I lifted my chin proudly. "Of course," he said. "I know exactly what you want in the entertainment industry. Why don't I become your financial backer? It will make your path much smoother, and I can protect you along the way." TSK, TSK, TSK. I took a deep breath and said, "No thanks, Noel. I don't want anything that Riva has touched." I entered the Gunter residence not to grab her things. I wasn't interested in her possessions. What I aimed to do was simply discard the things she was so proud of, like trash. Noel's face showed a hurt expression I had never seen before. "Riva and I have never been close, only engaged in a childhood betrothal. If you don't like it, I can cut all ties with her right now. Besides, the child she miscarried had nothing to do with me. She had already been with some nameless thug." To be honest, Noel really is a perfect lover. During the time we were together, he always prioritized my opinions and never let me suffer even the slightest grievance. I knew he had certain possibilities, but how could I deserve to have feelings? My goal was to crush everyone. After Noel left, heartbroken, I looked at the banner on the street. The woman on it was glamorous and noble, like the hazy glow of neon lights, like roses decaying in a garden, both decadent and noble. She was a wild swan, a poisonous rose. She would never be a devotee going to love. I wanted revenge, and I would step over everyone to get it. From that day on, my resources improved, and the brands wanting to collaborate with me were countless. I knew it was Noel paving the way for me. My career took off completely. I looked at it all with satisfaction, because I knew Riva couldn't sit still anymore. Every day, many fans send me private messages. "Erin, your voice is truly beautiful. I feel like you must have experienced many stories. You give me a sense of enduring hardship and brokenness. Erin, you shine on stage. I light a candle for you in the sea of people." I often selected fan messages and post them on social media to express my gratitude, just to let Riva know how popular I had become. Riva couldn't hold back and sent me a wicked message. "Erin, what are you so smug about? They like you just because you're wearing my face. Everything you have now is stolen. One day, you'll have to pay it all back." It was clear how furious she was. I calmly added fuel to the fire. "But right now, it's me standing here. If I'm not mistaken, Riva was already feeling that many things weren't going her way. She couldn't accept that someone she had once trampled on now had what she longed for but couldn't touch. Eventually, she couldn't hold it any longer. Riva recorded a video attacking me. She said, "Your beloved singer, Erin, is nothing but a fraud who stole my face. The person you all admire is actually pathetic. She framed me, and my disfigurement is because of her. She took everything from me." As she spoke, she threw out a few photos. They were from when I was abroad. Lying on the operating table, the girl in the photos was on the brink of death, her face covered in blood. The photos clearly showed what I looked like before the surgery, and how I now resembled Riva. These photos caused a huge stir online. When Riva called me, she was arrogant. "Erin, even if I've exposed everything, I'm still the Gunter family's young lady, still loved by people. Once others know how pathetic you are, you'll have nothing left. Besides, I was the one who sent you abroad. Who can prove your innocence now?" She had always been eager to destroy me. Riva was certainly looking forward to seeing me break down in tears. Avis asked me, "Are you scared?" People online were all criticizing me. I used to passionately admire Erin. I felt she had an indescribable aura. But now you tell me she stole her face too. What else is real? The most shocking thing of the year. What have I been following? Watching her build a high tower, host banquets, and then collapse. Why can't she cherish her reputation? I laughed so hard I bent over. "Scared, Bavis, I might owe you an apology. I have been waiting for this day for a long time." Bavis said, "I know what you're planning. Go ahead, but promise me that as long as you're not destroyed, once this is over, you'll sing for me properly." At that moment, The light fell on his tousled hair, casting a golden glow. His slightly sparkling eyes were dark and beautiful. Riva's plan was that I had no evidence, but what she didn't know was that when I was sent abroad, I had been cautious. I recorded everything. She probably didn't expect me to do this. After all, my father and mother were in her grasp, and I had no way to resist. But she wouldn't understand how resilient a person in long-term darkness can be. The only thing it can do is endure the humiliation of the moment and gather evidence to strike back when the time comes. I had not only the recordings from abroad, but also evidence of long-term bullying in the form of photos. Noel called me as soon as he saw the trending news. Are you okay, Arian? I didn't know Riva would do this. I believe in you. Don't act impulsively. I'll help you with this. He sounded anxious and angry, as if he really cared about me. I replied coldly, Noel, don't make decisions for me. I can handle this myself. I knew what Noel was afraid of. He was worried I might release this evidence. If I did, it would ruin me. As long as nothing was confirmed about me being the one wearing Riva's face, everything could still be reversed with money. But this situation was already heading in the direction I had set. I wanted Riva to say everything herself, to see herself destroy her own life. I never intended to stay clean. I wanted to drag Riva into the mire with me. So, I released the recordings and photos without hesitation, along with evidence of corruption and tax evasion I had collected at the Gunter residence. Now, I was a public figure. The recordings have Riva's arrogant and harsh voice. Your value is just about this. Take the college entrance exam for me, and I'll give you $1 million. You'll never spend it all in your life. After the exam, you'll ruin your face. I'll give you another look. Don't flaunt my face. And there were more photos of her having people block me in an alley. She sat there like a princess on a railing, with a few thugs serving her. Even though my body was curled up, my face pleading, she had no intention of letting me go. Her exact words were, you little bitch, didn't you used to call so sweetly? Why aren't you calling now? And photos of her pouring boiling water on my face. My once beautiful and fair face was burned and blistered, bleeding, and the teacher who never came to class again because of comforting me. After these things were exposed, the police investigated, and the Gunter group was found guilty of more than just tax evasion. Riva had always disregarded human life. Previously, the Gunter family had covered for her time and again, but now everything was exposed to the light of day. The building fell within a day. Public opinion turned 180 degrees overnight. Help, everyone. I finally understand where Erin's story comes from. Who could endure this? If I had already committed suicide, she would still be standing here. Truly amazing. So heartbroken for her. She's just a young girl. If it weren't for Riva, she could have had a normal youth and a bright future. Everyone was advocating for justice for me. Riva went completely insane. She hysterically ran to my company to confront me. Erin, what do you want? My parents blame me because of you. They say I'm not as good as you. Noel loves you now. You've taken my career, and now you're releasing these things to ruin me. You better clarify immediately that those things are fake. She looked like a shrew, and although her disfigured face from the accident had been repaired, it still looked somewhat unnatural. I smiled faintly. Of course, I hope you die. I didn't hide my malice towards her. She tried to raise her hand to hit me, but Bevis stepped in front of me. He smirked. Riva, you can't hit my singer. Riva was so enraged, she couldn't catch her breath and continued to threaten me. You wait, Erin. One day I will kill you. Oh, it's just too bad that Riva didn't get the chance, because she was arrested that day. After all, she had committed so many illegal acts. I heard that Riva continued to insult me in prison, calling me a whore and blaming me for ruining her. She never reflected on her own issues. It's worth mentioning that Emily, the sister complex, started vehemently blaming Riva after Riva was arrested. She said that if it weren't for this sister, the Gunter family wouldn't have ended up like this. And Emily died from school bullying. After this incident, Emily's former victims and those who were classes spared no mercy on her. What had happened to me now happened to Emily. Overwhelmed, Emily jumped off a building on a rainy night. Her parents seemed to age decades overnight. But strangely, they didn't seem to blame me at all. They weren't innocent, but they still had a sense of conscience, knowing I was the victim and their daughter was at fault. That night, Noel brought a trunk full of flowers to my building. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. Now that everything is resolved, can we be together without any distractions, Erin? His tongue was tender, and his gaze seemed to be filled with immense affection. I shook my head. No, Noel. He was quite perplexed. Why? I didn't like you because of your face. From the beginning to the end, I haven't done anything wrong to you, and I haven't seen you showing interest in any other man. Everything about Mimi's status, my looks could stand on its own. Why won't you accept me? At this point, he lowered his head, looking somewhat aggrieved. I knew from the start that you were Riva. I never thought of you as her. I was waiting for you to finish your revenge and come to me. Isn't that acceptable? To be honest, I was genuinely surprised. I stared at Noel in astonishment. His expression was so sincere and full of emotion. But I took a step back and smiled. I don't care about Riva's family or career. So do you think I would be concerned about a mere love affair? From the beginning, my goal was simply to ruin Riva's life. Now that it's all over, I don't want to be involved with anything related to her, because I can't help but feel nauseous. I don't even love myself, so how could I possibly love someone else? I stood there for what felt like an eternity before Noel, clearly distressed. Finally spoke. I understand now. I won't disturb you anymore. After that day, Noel never appeared before me again, but resources kept coming my way, one after another, and I knew it was all his doing. Later, I heard that this Lucius family heir, now in his 30s, still hadn't married. None of this mattered to me anymore. I was planning to leave the entertainment industry. My only purpose was to destroy Riva. It was my obsession. When I released those things, I thought that fans and netizens would find it impossible to accept such a broken version of me. But to my surprise, they all urged me to stay. Erin, your first half of life has been so tough. Let us walk the rest of the way with you. Okay. Erin, you really are like a star, shining with your own light. I really like you. Please stay. What I love is your soul and your voice, which can't be summarized by just your appearance. Erin, thank you for resisting through all the trials and tribulations. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen such a vibrant you. They showed me their deepest kindness. When Bevis heard I wanted to leave, he was furious. Erin, how dare you? After I've stuck with you for so long, if you try to play me, I'll never let it go. He was so irritable. I rolled my eyes, but my face isn't even my own. Bevis was serious. You're a singer, not an actress. That line again. I sighed in resignation. Although he could be unreasonable, I didn't bring up leaving the industry again. But I did find time for a cosmetic procedure, because countless times in the middle of the night, I wake up trembling with fear at the sight of my face in the mirror. And countless times, I cry and pick up a knife, tracing patterns on my face, wanting to destroy it. In the end, it was the thought of keeping this face to exact my revenge that stopped me. The face after surgery didn't resemble anyone. In this industry, cosmetic surgery isn't unusual, and with my experience, fans quickly accepted my new look. Later, just as Bevis hoped, I sang many songs. I became famous across the country. Then I started a world tour. At each concert, I would say the same thing. If someone remembers a flower, the flower will not wither. A rose will always be a rose, even if it has been battered. We are all travelers through the wilderness of humanity, cutting through thorns, finding dawn even in the darkest night. This time, I will live for Erin. The story has ended. Please subscribe to the channel to get the latest content. A new novel is updated every day.